Prologue. The moon crested the horizon and shed light on a world darkened long ago by deception and despair. As she rose, she illuminated a young man of 15 with average build and height. This boy was out cold and resting peacefully on the grass. The moon's light blasted a hole in the darkness around the boy and shed light on his surroundings. He was sprawled in a sea of golden grass which stretched for miles with no interruption from mountain or forest. The plains rolled on, rising here and there to form small hillocks, while the wind constantly rustled the grass. Only one thing stood out on this cool evening. A frail, leafless tree had set its roots down in the middle of the plains. The tree was positioned a few feet away from the boy, but oddly enough, its limbs stretched over the prone form as if protecting him while he slept. Had the moon been a living being who could speak with us today, she might have surprised you with what she observed next. The tree moved. This was not just any movement, though. The tree actually defied nature by lifting its roots clean out of the ground. The lower half of its trunk seemed to split into two smaller trunks, and the tree took a step forward. Had the moon been a living being, she would have taken a second sound look at this tree. She would have seen two distinct legs where one trunk should be, and two sets of stringy feet where roots should be. As she looked up the body of the tree, she would have seen a distinct torso, complete with barkish shoulders. From those shoulders, its limbs protruded into arms, hands, and fingers. A small trunk protruded up from the shoulders, and on this neck swiveled a head. Its snout was very long, complete with a long mouth and short rounded nose. The moon would have seen two deep amber eyes set high in the face with two wooden spikes protruding from the back of the creature's head. The creature knelt down beside the sleeping young man and brushed his hand across the young one's forehead. To the obvious relief of the creature, the boy stirred under the uncomfortable, prickly hand. The boy was still far from waking, and the creature worried about that. Too many people knew about the sudden appearance of Nons all over the continent. All it took was one slip of the tongue, and everything he had worked for would be undone. He scanned the horizon constantly during his vigil. He would stay there as long as it took for the other to arrive. You see, his kind was a loyal race of people called the Queequegs. Queequegs are ancient creatures of the earth formed to look like trees. Their skin was as strong as bark, and their innards were as thick and strong as trunks. They could stand perfectly still at no more than 6 feet high and root their feet to the ground, so as to mimic a tree. This came in especially handy when the Queequegs were in danger. A distant rumble caught the attention of this Queequeg, and he quickly turned to the east. His heart dropped as he recognized the sound of hoofbeats. He was expecting a rumbling sound from deep within the earth to usher in his friend, Bunta, the Bompalari. The Bompalari were massive mud creatures that could solidify to rock in an instant and can travel underground at great speeds. This sound he heard was not the sound of his friend. In the next instant, the wind picked up and a gale force blasted across the skinny creature. His roots dug into the ground and held him tight. He leaned against the wind and peered into the sky to see a large avian creature slowly descending overhead. He looked down and was startled to see the boy staring right at him. The boy shot up into a sitting position and began to crab walk backwards away from the Queequeg. His eyes and mouth were wide open, but not staring at the stick creature. They were staring past him into the sky and had fixed on the now descending avian creature. The Queequeg made to defend his charge as the creature landed. In a resonant, slightly wooden voice, the Queequeg said, "You will not harm him." The boy gasped as he realized that the small tree was talking and baring his fists, readying himself for a fight to the death. He scooted back farther, just out of reach of both creatures. In this instant, he realized what the avian creature was. He had used these things in his fantasy video games. The creature was a griffin, a half-bird, half-lion creature. Its front torso was obviously that of an eagle's, with a large clacking beak, sharp talons on its forelegs, and feathers to match. Its back sloped downward to form the back legs and tail of a lion. The creature was easily bigger than a rhino, with great purple eyes that scanned the horizon. The griffin laughed. "I am not here to harm the young one, Master Queequeg. I am the one sent to transport him elsewhere. Those hoofbeats you hear are keepers." "Then we must move fast." He turned to the boy and knelt down. "My name is Quintus, and I am a Queequeg of the wood. You are in mortal danger, but not from me." "Where am I? I want to go home," interrupted the boy. "There is no time for that right now. Time brings your enemies ever closer, and we must get you to safety before we discuss your trip home," said Quintus. "How do I know you're not my enemies?" said the boy as he backed farther away. "You don't," answered a voice from behind the boy. He turned to see a man who looked to be in his early 50s. He wore a long black traveling cloak, but looked to be in top shape. His hair was silver and cropped short, but what caught the boy's attention the most was the branded K that spanned the top of his right cheek to just above his right eye. He rode astride a large black horse and was soon joined by many other men and women with the same branding. He marveled at their speed and the fact that he had not heard them coming. The griffin approached quickly and dipped his head before the boy. "Your name is Malachi, and you do not come from our world. I can tell you more, but only if you come with me, now." "The boy is going nowhere, and for that matter, neither are you. You are all under arrest in the name of the West." The man raised his right hand with his palm facing upward. The boy Malachi was astounded to see a flame form in the man's hand. The man smiled wickedly and locked his eyes on Malachi. Time stood still as Malachi realized that he was no longer in the real world. He saw the man raise his arm and turn his hand to face him. He heard both of the creatures behind him yell and lunge for him. But then he heard a deep rumbling that rose to a quick crescendo. He stood on the quaking ground and looked down in time to see the ground explode before him. Out jumped a very dark, very fat man. He reminded Malachi of a sumo wrestler. The sumo grabbed Malachi in a light bear hug, just as the man extended his arm to throw the fireball at the boy. The fire found its mark on the back of the creature, which had now turned to stone. The monstrosity released Malachi, and he turned to find that the stick creature had disappeared, but the griffin was still there, kneeling down as if waiting for Malachi to board. In that instant, Malachi felt a rush like he had never felt before. Something inside him yearned to be a part of the action that was suddenly overtaking him. It was like a voice was telling him what to do, and it was telling him to jump on the creature's back. He ran forward and vaulted onto the griffin. The griffin rose up on his hind legs and extended his wings as if to shield Malachi from something. He brought his taloned hands together to form a circle. Within the circle, a green ball of energy formed. He quickly brought his hands apart and released the little green energy ball, which instantly exploded into those same gale-force winds that had woken Malachi earlier. Whether it's from all the excitement or from the exhilaration of flight, Malachi did not know, but he passed out cold once more. The griffin carried him through the night air. That night, none of the stars believed the intense story the moon shared.